Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way YouTube channel. You join us at 8:30 tonight, where we'll be bringing a belated but a reaction all the same to Celtic's press conferences that happened today. Tonight, I'm delighted to be joined once again by Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10 on the X handle. Tony, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very well. Yourself, never-ending day for us both, but never-ending for your good self. I had a
Was that
couple
the
of hours.
never-ending story from
I
that
don't
an
know.
80s music
yeah,
movie?
yeah,
Can't
yeah,
remember the
yeah.
exact singer's name, but that's what he
Lamal,
does.
Lamal, it was that
Mal,
sang
that's
that.
it. You
Yes,
got a
yes.
Friday night tune out of you already. I know the
Former,
tune well.
formerly of
Yeah.
the band Kajagoogoo, but there you go. Show me.
Totally get you. Totally get you. Charlie's came in already saying hello, lads. Thank you very much for joining us, Charlie,
Hello,
as we
Charlie. How you doing?
give a reaction to Celtic's press conferences that happened today. You know, the reason why we're doing a later video is because they were released later on, and then you're going through and transcribing it, getting them all up, doing separate stories, and then we'll come on and do a live reaction. But I think we've lived with the comments for a couple of hours now, so we can gauge an opinion on everything that's been said. Before we get started on everything to discuss this evening, once again, if we could thank MPH Group for sponsoring this video, as they do with all of our videos. MPH Group and Navien. Tony's doing the pointing, he's doing my jobs now as well. This video is brought to you by MPH Group, who are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialists covering all of mainland Scotland. Winter's rolling in, and if you're looking to give your home heating system a boost, then MPH have an enticing Navien Boiler Winter Promotion just for you. When you opt for a Navien Boiler installation through MPH, not only are you choosing top-tier efficiency, but you're also getting a free Navien Internet Controller. This little gadget can crank up your boiler's efficiency to an impressive 98%, and they're also covering the first year service at no added costs. Navien are gunning for Product of the Year in the H&V News Awards, the Oscars of the heating world, and to top it all off, the On range comes with a 12-year parts and labour warranty. Big shout out to MPH, they're also nominated for Small Company of the Year at the same awards. MPH even offer flexible finance options, so gear up for the show and consider making a smart move with MPH and Navien. All the links are in the description for your plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathroom works. So who will be just going on to the two press conferences that happened today? Well, there was three if you count Brendan Rodgers' interview with Sky Sports, which is also on the Celtic website. Do you want to start off with Cameron Carter-Vickers potentially, and then move on to Brendan Rodgers for the second half of this video? Because I thought some of his comments were quite interesting. Carter-Vickers, he's quite a good speaker. You can tell why he's one of the leaders in the Celtic dressing room for sure.
He was very good on Scales, wasn't he? You sort of spoke about.
Yeah, I think that's the standout quote.
Yeah, Liam Scales, he admires his mentality, because he said, he even admitted, he said that he thought even Scales might have thought that his career was ending at Celtic, basically, when he went on loan to Aberdeen, but he has that mentality, and he's shown a great mentality to come back and also to cope by, when he got his chance, to cope with the mental pressures of it all, and also to cope with the level that he's playing at too. So I was really impressed, and I just thought that was a really nice thing to say from Cameron Carter-Vickers to that question, that he's been really impressed by Scales. So yeah, I was happy that he bigged up his currently his central defensive partner. So that was a good thing. And yeah, and Cameron Carter-Vickers also saying that he's not big on social media. He doesn't really delve into that or look at that. Ryan, sometimes I don't believe players when they say that. It was like when players and managers say they don't read headlines or they don't read newspapers. Somebody bangs them in front of them. You know what I mean? Because they're always aware of what's being said or what's going down.
It's
As
like
they
what
say.
Brendan Rodgers said a few weeks ago. Even though he's not on social media, he's got people that are on social media that will tell him what's happening on social media. So,
course.
as much as it's a good excuse to say they're not on it, if they've got people that are doing the work for them, then I would say that they're on social media by proxy.
Yeah, of course. And I thought his comments didn't say jar with the manager, but they were polar opposite, wasn't they, in terms of VAR? Cameron Carter-Vickers said he thought the technology was very good. It was just the implementation, and sometimes the referees could do better with that, as opposed to Brendan Rodgers saying he would scrap it just now if you're asking him, because it's interrupting the flow of the game, and it's causing, it's not football as you know it, he was sort of saying. So, a myriad of topics covered by Cameron Carter-Vickers, but also saying that what we were talking about this morning, that they've got the defeat out of their system, and they're just fully focused on Aberdeen on Sunday, and that's what you like to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. We do like to hear that, definitely. So the question that was posed to him was said, "Can I ask you about Liam Scales? He's a player who admitted himself that he was not even sure that he would be at the club this season. He's really stepped up to the plate, hasn't he? How impressed have you been with his progress in the first few months of the season?" And Cameron Carter-Vickers replied, saying, "Liam has done really well. I think from the mentality that he went to Aberdeen last season and probably did think he wasn't going to be at Celtic this season. However, from day one in pre-season, he came in and worked hard and he's been ready. He's waited on his opportunity and he's taken it and he's playing really well." And then just on that social media comment that you were talking about, he said, so the question was, "I know a lot of players say they're not on social media, but it must be difficult to steer clear of any social media information leaking in. And if it does, how do you help players around you when it comes to mentality? Does it have a big impact on them with the fans' overreactions sometimes on social media?" Carter-Vickers comes back and says, "I don't see a lot of social media and stuff like that, to be honest. It's hard for me to kind of say. I think one thing we're good at here as a group is getting that energy back up. It's natural after a loss like that everybody's a bit flat and a bit down. After you've got over that initial emotion, the key thing is to bring the energy levels back up on the training ground and refocus for your next game as quickly as possible." Wise words from a very, very wise centre half that, I think he's got maturity beyond these years. And I always say it's quite stunning that Cameron Carter-Vickers is younger than me by a few months, but he certainly carries himself as an older player. He's 25 just now, just going to turn 26. But he carries himself, I think, as like a 30, 31-year-old, and he plays like one too. Judging by those comments, you can tell why he's a leader in the dressing room.
Yeah, he's always had that wise and old head on young shoulders, hasn't he? To be fair to him, you know what I mean. So I've always enjoyed listening to him because you can understand why he is the vice captain, because he was asked about that as well, wasn't he? About getting the armband, and he said he was glad that the managers trust him when Callum McGregor went off last weekend. So you can see why, and I think Ange Postecoglou said it at the time, didn't he? Last year, he said he's a different kind of captain. Whenever he took the armband, I don't think he is as vocal as Callum McGregor, but when he talks, players listen, don't they? You would listen to Cameron Carter-Vickers when he spoke, because even when he speaks in press conferences, he always says something very interesting, doesn't he? And he was good today. I like what I hear from him, and I admire him as a player. I think he's been a terrific acquisition for Celtic since he came in, and you just feel there's a solidity there, isn't there? There's a reliability, and that comfort blanket which he missed after he got the operation, after that wonderful semi-final performance against Rangers. You did miss him. Celtic conceded a lot of goals, didn't they, when they left in that latter part of the season? So yeah, he's a vital cog in that in the defence, isn't he? And I think the highest compliment you can pay him is that when it comes to centre backs, it's always Cameron Carter-Vickers and another, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say that, absolutely. And
team, yeah.
although now
Yeah, of
it's
course.
pretty much guaranteed with Scales and Cameron Carter-Vickers that they are going to start games, and that's just due to the partnership that those two players have got. And it's clear to see that they both rate each other very highly. They both get on, probably on and off the pitch as well, and that's great to see. A ballroom dancer is only as good as his dance partner is, and those two are certainly a good partnership in the back of that Celtic defence, in the heart of the Celtic defence. They really do help each other out. I think the fact that Liam Scales is left-footed as well is helping Carter-Vickers enhance his game even further. The two of them are really working well. I know they both conceded 6 goals on Tuesday, but it was 10 men against Atletico Madrid, and they've not been conceding a lot of goals in the domestic league, so I'd say it's a pretty good partnership just now. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we go into Brendan Rodgers' VAR tirade that he went on this afternoon?
No, I think we've covered Cameron Carter-Vickers pretty extensively there. I think we only spoke for about 8 minutes, didn't he? Was that something like that?
It's probably the longest he's been on, to be honest, because
Yeah.
I remember him usually doing 3-4 minute press conferences. So if he's doing double he's normal, then I think it shows that he's in a good place and he's happy where he's at. Fingers
think
crossed
he's
he
more.
can get a new contract sorted in the near
Yeah,
future, because he's
think
vitally important to Celtic.
think he's more comfortable with it now. Maybe at first he didn't. It's not something that a lot of players enjoy doing, but maybe he's enjoying it a bit more now. And it's always hard when you're asked to be put up, knowing full well that they're going to rake over the coals of Tuesday night. So I thought he handled it really well. Just sort of said we move on and we try and get the spirits up and the energy levels up, as soon as. And I think Brendan Rodgers talked about that as well. You've got the 24-hour kind of grieving window, and then you just have to move on and think about the next one. So I think Carter-Vickers was certainly adhering to that principle, wasn't he?
Yeah. Shall we get on to talking about Brendan Rodgers' probably one of the longest press conferences he's done? I don't know who put 50p in Brendan Rodgers today, but he did not stop talking. I think he's had a conversation with Alistair Johnson before doing this press conference, because my goodness, he gave some very, very long answers to certain questions. Even if you look at the Q&A that's available on the Celtic website, the length of the answers is absolutely incredible. It's so long for a Q&A. So just going into, I think we should probably address the elephant in the room, which is a VAR shaped elephant in the room for Brendan Rodgers. It's very clear to everyone that was either watching that video, watching the video, who looked at the Q&A or listened to anything that's been said on TV, that Brendan Rodgers is not the biggest fan of VAR. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Just bringing up some of his comments that he made. So he was saying, when it first came out, I was always in favour of something that was for the greater good of the game, or if something helps that or makes it better as a spectacle for supporters, then brilliant. He's talking about how he feels the Celtic supporters paying hundreds of pounds, getting stuck up in the sky watching the game, and then after 20 minutes one of the players is sent off. He then goes on to say he thinks the SFA will look at VAR, talking about how in any line of work, if something has been put in place, then they have to review and reflect on whether or not it's working. He spoke to managers in the Championship that like having no VAR in the league. He also then said just blatantly, if it was up to him, he would get rid of VAR in all its capacity and just get back to the way it was. What are your while I get some breath, what are your opinions on Brendan Rodgers' sort of tirade against VAR? Do you agree with his grievances towards VAR, especially given the decision to send Daizen Maeda off for a challenge that wasn't really a red card whatsoever?
I think, like everything else, it was a bit of a scattergun approach to VAR today from Brendan Rodgers, but you find it hard to disagree with him, don't you? It's not football as we know it. It's stripping the enjoyment out of the game, and when it starts to do that, then it's fans, supporters, managers, and players that you feel for, isn't it? To be honest, so I think he was only giving his honest reaction. And the other night, he made a point of making that call about the computer game. He reiterated that today, didn't he? You have got men going to a screen and basing their judgment on stills. Now, the still that you saw from Daizen Maeda was of the foot being raised, but when you watched the instant, and the referee had a good view of the instant and gave a yellow card because there was no malice in it, was there, at all? It was, his foot was raised, but there was no real intent there, was there? To be fair, I didn't think the referee saw it in real time. It wasn't as if it was really fast and it was, a terrible, terrible instant. And a lot of and we said it at the time, a lot of it was the reaction to Daizen Maeda's challenge that got Daizen Maeda sent off from Simeone and about 7 Atletico Madrid players, because there was a similar challenge on Kyogo, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
With the boot raised in a similar still. So where was VAR then? And I don't think the Celtic players made too much of a meal of that. So I
That
thought
streetwise argument once again,
yeah,
Tony, unfortunately.
of course, yeah, the streetwise argument, yeah. But I think the manager was right to have his say on it. I think everybody's just frustrated by VAR. I don't think they dispute the actual technology side of it, that it's there, you should use it. It's just the implementation of it, isn't it? But it's the arbitrary implementation of it at times by referees, which some things are a red card, some things are a penalty, but other things aren't, or other similar things aren't. So it's all down to, it's now becoming, interpretation. And as Brendan said, he was talking about the kind of re-refereeing of games on a screen. You just can't have that, can you? Referees see it in real time. They make a judgment. They make a decision. And I think the question put to him as well was meant to be clear and obvious errors, wasn't it? But it's gone, and it was in, I think the journalist said it's gone beyond that, and he said, yeah, it has gone beyond that, and it's slowly but surely stripping the enjoyment out of football. Every goal, people are now looking at the linesman to see if there's going to be a late flag. That sometimes it takes 2, 3, could even be longer, 5 minutes for a goal to actually be given once it's scored, because they're checking for all sorts of things. And as I say, it's the arbitrary nature of VAR, which wasn't what it was brought in for, to re-referee games or to go to a computer screen every time. It was meant to be for clear and obvious errors, but it's all now, I say, down to implementation and interpretation from referees. And I think the whole system could do with either being tightened up or scrapped. You have to agree with the manager. I think we would just accept to err as human if we went back to the old way, wouldn't we? But there's too much
I think
money
there needs to be
being
a
invested.
hybrid. I've got to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's got to be a hybrid. For offside, I agree that there should be, VAR has got to be for offside, because there's got to be that.
Yeah.
You've got to have an exact, yes, you can, I think there is no right or wrong answer with regard to challenges in the modern game, I think, because it's so open to interpretation, but there's no interpretation when it comes to offside or goal line technology as well. You're either offside or you're on. It's either in or it's out. Seeing incidents like that, then I'm all for VAR, but it's just this re-reffing of the game that's becoming a problem.
See what I'm also in favour of, Ryan. See if they can't get a definitive picture with the lines drawn for offside, then you favour the attacker. See if you can't get the angle that you need to prove conclusively that someone's offside or onside, or you're taking it from like a ridiculous angle that they did at Fir Park. They took it from an angle from Hamilton, I think, or Airdrie. It was that far away, you know what I mean?
From my house in Coatbridge.
Yeah. So if you're doing that, then I think in those situations you've got to favour the attacker. See if you can't get the definitive picture from the broadcaster or from your camera, then you've got to favour the attacker in that sense, I think, because, it then becomes a 50-50, doesn't it? So if you're wanting to, football's all about goals, isn't it? So unless you can provide 100% conclusive proof that something's offside, then if you can't, then it has to favour the attacker. And there's too many times, we watch Celtic a lot, obviously because it's part of your job and your remit. How many times has Celtic fallen victim to it the very first day with Abada at Tynecastle? They couldn't give you conclusive pictures. They gave you a picture that said he was offside, so they just went with that. The one with Jota,
the Guinea Pig game at Tynecastle.
Yeah, the one with Jota at Fir Park, and then there was one recently, wasn't there, with Celtic, and then one that they did get against Hearts at Celtic Park. I mean, the whole country was up in arms. You had refereeing supervisors on national radio discussing it, so that's not good enough. We're supposed to have the technology to prove these things, in a black and white situation. It's either onside or it's offside. So I think the whole kind of technology around VAR should be tightened up, and the implementation of it by those.
Yeah, you're just hoping that those thermal ones that are used in the Champions League get brought in the near future, because they really do give it in black and white and red for the heat point, for the thermal point, when you can tell whether a player is offside or onside. It's more like Hawkeye and tennis, when you know exactly. And that tightening up, there's no excuse for that not to be in football, because football generates arguably the most money around the world in terms of a sport the money's got to be there. You know, I know it's difficult for individual leagues to fund it, but you know, Scotland has got it before some other big leagues in the world, like the Championship that was mentioned by Brendan Rodgers. I am so surprised that they don't have VAR yet in that, especially because the whole model of the Championship is to get into the Premier League. That is the big thing. The Championship is that step down. So why would you not bring in the Premier League standards to the Championship, or is there just more of a cut-off in that? Either way, you know, Scotland has it. I don't think they have the best version of VAR, but they've got to deal. Celtic have got to unfortunately deal with it. You're hoping it doesn't rear its ugly head at the weekend, but you just don't know. You expect a decision to go one way or the other in the game. There's too much intervention. I think that's the one problem. There's too much re-reffing and there's too much intervention and there's not enough clarity in the stands.
Yeah,
like the replays, there should be a replay whenever a decision goes against a team.
There's all that uncertainty, Ryan, as well. And also, you get back to it, in that case, there has to be, you know, correspondence, clarity. Has to be communication. You know, it has to be transparency. And I know, I think if for VAR to survive moving forward, going to have to bring that in. They do it in American football, don't they? They do it in rugby. Well, they explain decisions and explain how they got to it. And
basketball too.
Yeah, basketball too. So if they can do it in these sports, they've got to do it in football. It has to be the way forward. And also, and it might not be to people's liking or palatable to some people, but you have to then release the conversations as to how they came to that decision, or let the fans hear the conversations that are going on while they're coming to that decision. Now, you might not like the decision at the end up, but at least there's honesty there, there's transparency and there's clarity. If VAR is to succeed in football moving forward, that's what's got to happen. Because as killing enjoyment of the game, because your initial reaction when a goal is scored is VAR going to rule that out? Did anything happen? You're checking for handballs. Yeah, CJ's right. It's killing the passion of the game. You can't show your emotions initially because you're
with
just
Palmer's goal. The biggest example was Palmer's goal. Not even the Palmer goal against Lazio. The Palmer goal against Atletico Madrid. I didn't celebrate that goal when I was in the ground instantly, or up in the stands instantly, because I thought that Daizen Maeda was offside. Therefore, I knew it was going to be tight. Therefore, I knew that a VAR check was going to be in, and I would need to temper my excitement, because you know Celtic had just went 2-1 up against Atletico Madrid.
It was tempered with the Lazio game in mind, wasn't it? Because that's in the back of your mind. Has this happened again? Is you going to be the victim of another decision? And you know, and that's not what football's about.
It is the right decision, but
Celtic manager was right. It's killing the game. It's killing the enjoyment. It's killing the spectacle. And it's football, Jim, but not as we know it. you can't have that. And it's not the game. The manager said, the great quote, he said, "It's not the game that we love," and it's not the game that we love, is it? So,
no, absolutely not.
And Gordon Flowers comes in and says, "Too much stop-start. We don't want a game like American football should flow." We all know that. I'm talking about the actual decision making in American football and basketball and rugby when VAR has to get involved. I'm not talking about stopping the game for every incident. I'm talking about the major incidents, the ones that VAR are involved in. I want explanations. I think everybody wants clarity and they want explanation. I never said that stopping and starting the game. It was about clarity and all the VAR decisions, and just
unless Gordon's meaning that's his own opinion that it's too much stop and start with regard to
possibly
VAR.
Possibly,
could be either or. To be honest, I think it's definitely a valid point being made as well. Football should flow. You know, I think American football is very ad based. Football is very ad based, and football can do that at half time.
Football does flow to the point where VAR intervenes, doesn't it? You know, so. But I think the fans deserve clarity now, because we were told there would be teething problems. But I think we all know that in order for it to move forward, I think these things need to be implemented now. Transparency, honesty, you know, let's hear the discussions that are taking place on why decisions are being made involving every team. So there's no grey area, so nobody can criticise the process. as I say, you might not like the decision that's reached at the end up, but at least you'll respect the fact that you're in on the ground floor, as they say. You're involved in the discussions. You're being told there and then why you're being awarded a penalty, you're being awarded a goal, or a goal's been disallowed, or there's a penalty awarded against you. So, yeah, Gordon Flowers comes back in and says, "Yeah, Ryan, that's his point. Okay, no worries, Gordon. Sorry about that. Fair enough." But I don't think it would become stop-start. It's just for the ones where VAR get involved. Football, it's becoming stop-start game now because VAR's get involved too many times, isn't it? So
it's all about finding that perfect balance, I
yeah,
would say.
of course.
Just before we finish off, because I realise that we've been going on for 25 minutes, we did say it was going to be a 10-15 minute show. Brendan Rodgers also. Just want to get your quick reaction on the news about Daizen Maeda, because that broke after we were on the morning briefing. Very disappointing news that due to the foul, the reason why VAR is getting talked about, a further casualty has happened because of it, because
Yeah.
Daizen Maeda was sent off. He would have been taken off injured if it wasn't for that, due to an injury he picked up at the in the Metropolitano. He's going to be out for up to 6 weeks, Brendan Rodgers says, so that'll be after Christmas, along with Rio Hatate. Yeah, very, very disappointing news for Daizen Maeda on both ends of the pitch, because of the defensive work he does and the goal threat that he carries. So it's up to somebody else to step up, isn't it?
But then doesn't that tell you that it wasn't a malicious challenge?
I thought that, but the reason that that was my main thought when I heard about that news about the 6 weeks. That's what I thought. I was like, that means that he was fouled. He must have been fouled there.
Yeah, because he kicked through him, didn't he? He kicked through.
He gets kicked before the follow through. I know. I get the follow through.
So and so you're saying to yourself, so he hasn't gone in to injure an opponent. The referee saw it in real time, gave the yellow card, which was a sound enough punishment, I thought. And now Celtic have got the double whammy. He's been sent off, and now he's out for 6 weeks. It's a massive blow. It's a massive blow to the way Celtic shape up at times with Daizen Maeda in the team. And we've had this conversation before. He has garnered this reputation for being the road runner, Duracell Bunny, and doing all the defensive shifts. But Brendan Rodgers keeps reminding me he can create, he can score goals, and that's what you want Daizen Maeda to do more of. And now, sadly, he'll be out, but I guess it hands an opportunity to Yang in the interim until Abada's back, doesn't it? And I think Brendan Rodgers did the middle of December for Abada, was it? Middle of December.
So it's good that he'll be coming back soon enough.
Yang's got between now until the middle of December to lay down a marker, hasn't
Unless
he?
he goes for James Forrest, of course.
Well, he likes James Forrest, doesn't he? But I don't think he'll go for James Forrest on Sunday. I think he'd rather see Yang. I know I would rather see Yang, and I think a lot of Celtic supporters would rather see Yang.
Is that another spoiler? Is that another spoiler for your predicted lineup?
Possibly. But he came on against St Mirren to good effect, didn't he?
And then he played well against Ross County at Dingwall as well. I thought he was really, really bright. He rode a challenge from James Brown. He certainly wasn't feeling good after that challenge, but he got up and got on with it.
But
I do like the cut of his jib.
Yeah, on your original point, I think Daizen Maeda will be missed for Celtic in the next 6 weeks. And then when he comes back, he'll probably be going to the Asian Cup, won't he?
It could be straight away if he doesn't miss out.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want him to miss out on a prestigious tournament like that for him internationally. So, because they were saying that the 6 weeks takes him up to obviously the Rangers game as well. He's a doubt for that on the 30th of December now, isn't he? So it's up to Daizen Maeda to prove that he's a quick healer. But again, I get back to it. The challenge wasn't malicious in any shape or form, and he's came off worse, hasn't he? Yeah, he's the one that's suffered the double whammy of being red carded, having to see the fact that his team then slumped to a 6-0 defeat. Alistair Johnson saying he was pretty distraught about that, and now they put the tin lid and he's 6 weeks on the sidelines because of something that he didn't really, that wasn't of his own making. The guys followed right through on him and kicked him, so I think he's got a raw deal out of that, hasn't he? And he has to move on, just forget about it. These things happen. That's football, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's us at just about half an hour, guys. So we really do appreciate everybody joining us for this late press conference reaction. I think we reacted to most things that was said, on most things of note that were said in both press conferences. You can find those press conferences on the Celtic Way website at www.celticway.co.uk. If you're not already subscribed, then just add a / to that and say celticway.co.uk/subscribe. £4 for 4 months or £18 for a full year. The £4 for 4 months is a one-time offer. £18 for the year will have you covered until this time next November. So if you're interested in that, then please give it a go. Once again, we thank MPH Group for sponsoring this video. For all of your plumbing, heating, kitchens or bathroom work, and if you're looking for a Navien boiler, please check out MPH Group. All of the links are in the description. They're an award-winning group, or they're nominated for many awards, so please check out MPH Group, as they bring some really good rates and really good offers with regard to all of those sectors: plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathrooms. If you're interested, then please check out our sponsors, MPH Group, and we thank them once again for getting involved and sponsoring the videos, both pre, post-match, morning briefings and these evening reaction videos. Tony, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I really do appreciate your company.
Pleasure, my friend. It's been a never-ending day. I think both of us deserve to just lie down now, don't we? Something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Sleep till Sunday.
I couldn't think of a much better way to end the day than being on a video with you, Tony. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you to everybody in the comments. Really helps us keep the show going. We'll be back on Sunday afternoon, around about an hour and a quarter before the game, where we will be reacting to Celtic's lineup for the game against Aberdeen at home. Then we'll do a post-match reaction after the game, maybe an hour or so after the game, where we'll be reacting to Celtic's hopefully a win at Celtic Park for Celtic against Barry Robson's Aberdeen. Tony, thank you very much.
Pleasure as always. Take care.
And thank you, everybody, and have the best weekend possible. We really do appreciate you joining us. Cheers, guys.